everyone. My name is Pia Di Bravante, a second year student of Bachelor of Elementary Education in Palawan State University, Nara campus. And today I will be presenting about the Chapter 7 of Inclusive Education, which is the learners and other marginalized groups. So, the focus of my discussion today is the overview of marginalized learners and education, understand who they are and their educational challenges, and of course, explore inclusive strategies to support them. But first, let us know what is marginalization and education. So, marginalization in education refers to an inclusion of students based by race, poverty, disability, culture, and displacement. So, this exclusion affects the access of participation and success of the students. So, there are different forms of disadvantage rooted in social inequalities. So, inclusion requires awareness and intentional strategies. So, therefore, inclusion must be intentional and rooted in equity, awareness, and respect for diversity. I have here a case study of Aika's story. This is a fictional yet realistic example of what indigenous people, or student to be exact, faced in education. So, Aika is an indigenous girl who walks for hours to reach a school that doesn't even represent her culture or support her learning needs. So, she and her friends are mocked, misunderstood, and excluded by both students and the curriculum. Sadly, many indigenous children dropped out early not because they lack intelligence, but because of the lack of support from the system, which leads to poor academic performances. So, based on the case study or the ICA story, here are the overall view for indigenous people. So, indigenous children often face cultural and systematic barriers. Curriculum and school culture may not reflect their context, resulting in low performance and high dropout rates. So now I have here a picture of framework by Mizu. This is a framework for inclusion. So Professor Kayake Mizu offers a four-step approach in fostering inclusion. So the opening doors, the looking closely, making sense of the evidence, and dealing with marginalization. So first, what is the open doors? The opening doors or enabling voices to be heard. So the approach helps students share their thoughts on what makes them feel left out in school. So they use activities like drawing activities, talking in groups, and looking at pictures. So the main question in this step is what things in your school or class makes students feel ignored or excluded. So in step two, which is the looking closely or bringing the concerns on the surface. So in this step, the information from step one is carefully gathered and looked into to find students who might be feeling left out or have a problems that could lead to them feeling left out. So teachers and staff discuss the data to spot any patterns or issues with certain students. They also make sure to consider ethical concerns when choosing the data to use next. So the main question in this step is, are there any students feeling left out and how do they feel left out? So in step 3, which is the making sense of the evidence or sharing data with the learners. So in this step, the focus is on discussing the concerns about marginalization that were identified earlier without mentioning any names. So students reflect on their own experiences and think about how their classmates might feel. In this conversation, it is a conversation where both students and adults share and learn from each other. So the fourth step is dealing with marginalization or encouraging inclusive thinking and practices. So in this space, collaboration between adults and students is the key. So together they decide on actions to address the issues of marginalization that was discussed earlier. But this process doesn't stop here. It continues by helping adults pay attention on what the students say and ensuring that both students and adults know that marginalization is being taken seriously. So this framework by Professor Griaki Merzu is promote active participation and awareness, which is the key components of inclusive education. Next, let us know who these marginalized learners are. So these are the children in poverty, conflict zones, and labor, indigenous groups with distinct cultures and languages, abused, displaced, and refugee children, learners lacking system support and facing inclusion. So these learners often lack access to support system, resulting in exclusion and poor academic outcomes. We have the child laborers. So about 152 million child globally are engaged in child labor as of 2017. So they're either out of school or too exhausted to learn effectively. Well, this severely impact their development, well-being, and future. So education becomes a luxury rather than a right for many of them. Next is the indigenous learners. So, indigenous learners face barriers like geographic isolation, culturally irrelevant curriculum, and, of course, discrimination. So, their language and traditions are often excluded from formal education, leading to identity loss. So, they need culturally responsive education system that affirm on who they are. So next is the abused learners. So abuse, whether physical, emotional, or sexual, this deeply affects children's ability to focus, trust, and succeed. So abused learners often struggle academically and socially. So being abused negatively impacts children on health, cognitive, and social outcomes. So school must provide trauma-informed care and be a safe space for healing and learning. Of course, children needs protection, support, and a trauma-informed practices. We also have refugees and abused learners. So these learners face instability, lack of resources, and emotional trauma. So, refugee children are caught in crises that disrupt their entire lives, including education. They also deal with language barriers, emotional trauma, and under under-resourced schools. So, inclusive education, as emphasized in United Nations Sustainable Development Goal number 4, which is promotes inclusive and equitable education. So, school must prioritize their learners through targeted support and compassionate teaching. Lastly, the children's in conflict zones. So, war zones expose children to unimaginable violence. Some are forced to become soldiers, and others are denied access to education altogether. So, and school get destroyed, teachers disappear, and the children are left with trauma. So, education system must become more resilient, and international cooperation is crucial to protect these children. Urgent need for global action and child protection is a must for the school and the educational system overall to protect these children's mental health and well-being. So here are the strategies for inclusion that I've gathered from Chapter 7 of Inclusive Education. First is use culturally responsive teaching methods. Next is ensure classrooms are safe and welcoming. Encourage students' voice and participation. And of course, build partnership with communities and families. So every children learns differently. Inclusion means adapting to our approach to meet each learners where they are. So lastly is a call to action or my reflection about the chapter 7 of inclusive education. So first, teacher must be advocates for equity and justice. Use flexible teaching methods for diverse needs. And let's listen, adapt, and act to include all learners. And lastly, monitor and address signs of marginalization. So, every learner deserves access to equal education or quality education. So, let's be the kind of educators who fight for equality and justice. Every learners deserve to be seen, heard, and supported. Inclusion is not a trend, it's a commitment. So let's listen, adapt, and act to ensure that no child is left behind. So that would be my presentation for today. Thank you for listening and thanks for your attention. Again, my name is Pia Bibobante, a second year student of Bachelor of Elementary Education in Palawan State University, Nara Campus.